Hey guys, here we go with another video from the Your Games Analyzed series. In this video we're highlighting the player with the white pieces, PrestaJay, also known as Matt. Matt's been on a ChessGoals study plan for over 12 weeks now. He completed the intermediate plan and now he's on the intermediate rapid and classical plan. And just recently we wrote a blog post about him, and it was actually a little interview with Matt. And he gained 142 points in 12 weeks. Here's a little preview of the article. I'll put a link in the description below. So he's now looking to increase his rapid rating with a little more focus on slower games. This game he was playing a 15 plus 10 on Lee chess with the white pieces. So we had French defense, and Matt chose the advanced variation. And this is all pretty standard. Bishop e3. I think at this point, maybe a3 or d takes c can be played, but what I want to get to is the first strategic key moment. So that's coming up in a few moves. And if you've seen our Caro-Kann repertoire, one thing we really focus on when you're playing the black side of the Caro-Kann is trying to attack these pawns from the white side. So in this game, what Matt should be thinking about playing white, how does he keep these pawns solid? He's got this really nice pawn chain, and the pawn that black is trying to attack currently, d4, is defended by two pawns. So in this position, white's very solid. And the move Matt played in the game is pawn to e4. And I think this is the biggest takeaway from the game, Matt. The reason e4 is not a very good move here is because it weakens this pawn on d4. And as we'll see in the rest of the game, almost the whole game is about the d4 pawn. I know there's some tactics coming up back and forth, some missed tactics, some nice finds. Matt found some really nice tactics which we'll highlight. But really this is the key constructive takeaway, Matt, from this game, e4. So the reason you don't want to play e4, even though your king is already safe, is because you are now opening up this pawn on d4 as the weakest pawn on the board. And a lot of the tactics coming up revolve around this pawn. So other plans you could try here, you could try like bishop d3, queen e2, slow play a little bit. One plan I really like is pawn to b4. Get your queen out of the way, maybe queen b3. Get your rook on c1, assuming the pawns trade off. But the idea here is we want to keep this position closed, and we don't want to give black any targets in terms of our pawns. So we see black has the bishop pair for a bishop and knight. Let's keep those bishops hemmed in, and let's also not create any weaknesses with the pawns. And from this position, it's about even. You know, white has a little bit extra play on the king side. F-file is open. Black has a little bit of extra play on the queen side. So I think we should fight to sort of neutralize the queen side advantage for black and quickly get our rooks on the c-file. So let's see what happens after e4. C takes d, c takes d, queen b6. This is like a French player's dream. This queen on b6 hits b2, she hits d4, and the knight also hits d4, and the rook is already on the open file. So we can see in just those couple moves, this advantage got really large for black. And according to Stockfish, this is a 2-point edge. So material is even, but black is up 2 points. All right, now let's fast forward a little bit. E takes d, knight b3. Very nice job by Matt. So if you look at this weakness on d4 now, it's guarded 1, 2, 3 times. Only attacked twice. And the bishops still aren't super active. The one on e7 doesn't have many squares. The one on d7 could maybe come out to g4, but it's a little bit loose out there, and f5 is lined up with the rook. So that was a nice job by Matt. All right, let's fast forward a little bit. So now both players are looking to control the c-file. That makes a lot of sense. But here, Matt, this is a critical moment again. Queen b5 allows this little combo. Queen takes b5, bishop takes b5, knight takes e5, and the knight defends the bishop. So that one's more of a tactic. But in my opinion, this tactic doesn't come just because, hey, we need to work on our tactics. You know, a lot of times players think, oh, I just made a silly blunder, missed a tactic. I'll study my tactics and it'll be better. Well, studying tactics is good. and that will help find these tactics in the games. But I think even more important is the strategic setup leading to the tactics, right? So we look at this position, the reason this tactic is working is because these pieces are playing a bit defensive, and there's the potential pawn weaknesses in the center. So I think that's a big part of why this tactic happens. And fortunately for Matt, the opponent did not see knight takes e5. Okay, so now some pieces trade off. The players start to fight for control of the c file. Knight h2. And one thing that black missed here is rook takes c1 could be played, and if rook takes c1 back, trade another set of rooks, and in the end the d4 pawn drops. So again, I keep harping on this pawn, but this pawn is causing a lot of problems for white. Alright, now let's fast forward a bit to a really cool point in the endgame. So the players got into a little bit of time pressure here. I think Matt did a great job creating some counter chances coming up. Like this move right here. Knight e3, very strong move. It really puts the question to the opponent, what do you do? The strongest move is actually a takes b. Very difficult move to find. So I think Matt is doing a good job with the tactics and the counterplay overall. I think he's outplaying his opponent a little bit on tactics, but it's just the strategic weakness that is causing a lot of issues. So now coming up, there is one tactic here. Matt could play d5, and I think that saves the knight because it can come to d4. But after Matt loses the knight, he really starts to create some play with these pawns. I think it's a very nice job. And black didn't react very well to this. Like right here, black starts playing on the defensive. It should still be winning for black, but Matt's creating chances. And we'll see in a couple of moves there's actually a chance to draw the game. Okay, right here, this is a critical moment. So if we look at this position, white is up one pawn for a knight. The key for both sides is to create passed pawns as quick as possible. What's the way for white to create a passed pawn as quick as possible? It's going to be getting a passed pawn on the queen side over here. So after knight c4, if king takes b5, which happens in the game, knight takes b2, a4, also happened in the game. I think what Matt might have missed is there's knight takes a4. Now there's no passed pawns for white. And this is a completely winning position for black because these pawns are going to both get captured and black will have passed pawns remaining. So right here there's a very cool move for white. And the players didn't have a lot of time on the clock. But if white finds a4, this is actually a draw. And let's look at why. If b takes a4, king takes c4, white should be winning this because white's actually going to win this pawn and the b pawn runs really quick. Okay, so what if knight takes b2? I think this is close to what Matt was trying to get in the game, where his passed pawn starts running. But in this position, there's no way for this knight to stop or sacrifice for this pawn. So the best thing that black can do is try to create some knight checks. But how does this knight cover these squares? It's not going to be easy. I don't see any way. Let's say knight e5, a6. This square is covered by the white king. This square doesn't really help. So I think the game is pretty much over at this point. I don't see anything black can do. The computer eval is showing me +9, but it's stopping at depth 18. Yeah, I think it will just keep climbing if you let the computer run longer. So this is actually a win for white. And the best line for black, which in my opinion is super hard to find, is to not do anything over here. It's to move the king. Now if king takes b5, knight takes b2, a5, the black king can come help out. He's actually running backwards. And if pawn takes b5, Now black can play knight takes b2, and if b6, there's this nice check, getting the sacrifice again and winning the game for black. So with best play, in this position, a4 is a draw. And I give Matt a lot of credit. He did a good job creating his chances from a worse position to get that chance to draw. So Matt ended up missing this tactic. Both sides were low on time though, so it kind of got down to a little bit of a time scramble. Black ended up winning the game. I don't think it's important to go through the rest, but I think the key takeaways for Matt, the positives, opening went pretty well. I think Matt did a great job with the tactics and really fighting back when he was in a worse position. But I think the constructive takeaways, number 12, most important move of the game, e4. Really thinking about the structure, Matt, keeping the pawn solid on d4 and trying to keep the bishops closed in. I think you have good chances to play for a win here if you go for a strategy like pawn to b4. So I would say that's by far the main takeaway. Other than that, I think the endgame was something to note. This is not something you'll get all the time, but this is a fun type of endgame to practice with Tactics Trainer. So you can go into chess.com or Elite Chess Puzzles, select endgame tactics, and work through some of these kind of tactics. And even when you're low on time, you'll start to spot them a little more quickly. It'll become more intuitive how to draw or win these types of positions based on which color you're playing. All right, thanks Matt for submitting your game. And if you're a current ChessGoals member on a premium study plan, or you've purchased the Carol Khan course, that means you're in our Discord. We are analyzing games from ChessGoals members. I'm not sure what we're going to call you guys yet. We were thinking of goal masters, goalies. So let me know in the comments, what do you think ChessGoals members should be called? But yeah, if you're a ChessGoals member, we're analyzing your games. And if you like this video, click the thumbs up button. Subscribe if you want more content. And let us know your thoughts in the comments about this game. And if you like this type of content as well, we're hoping to analyze a bunch more games in the near term. All right, thanks for watching, guys.